Today is, I guess, okay, so today is, I guess, 29, 2024, and it's the workshop about communication is the key. It is a kind of summarization of my experience during the past 20 years or so about how we can make a good communication with children and kiddo during practice or even in everyday life basis. So, first of all, we should talk briefly about communication as a kind of connection or connectedness that each communication needs another party. Okay, so when we say communication, the next question is with who. So it means that I cannot say I'm communicating, and the sentence is not finished yet. I'm communicating with someone. I'm communicating or contacting to someone. So it's very important to know that each communication has at least two parties, okay? Even if someone is talking to himself, in fact, that person is talking to himself is two persons existing, one self and one of oneself, that they are talking to each other, making a kind of monologue that similarly is like a dialogue that two people are sending and receiving messages. So, first of all, you need to know that there are different types of communication that we need to know and mention and acknowledge that the communications are not solely limited to speech or verbal communication. Yeah, we have verbal, the way we talk and convey our message through speech or speaking, but they are nonverbal, and if there are plenty of time that we might utilize the tonality of sound, the prosody of sound, the musicality of the sound, also putting a stress on a specific word or using a specific certain enunciation upon speaking, some kind of facial mimic, gesture, body language. There are plenty of the communication technique that can add up or enrich or even change the messages being conveyed. And it is a very, very important part of communication. Yeah. The other part of types of communication is visual communication, the way it is coming from some applications like Proloquio2Go. Yes, it's a kind of AAC device, augmentative and alternative communication devices. Yeah. Also, there are plenty of things like text or picture exchange communication system or many other visual systems in which we are going to convey a message not by words, but by visual pictures, that there are kind of images that both parties agree upon the same concept about that image. Yeah. So it's visual communication. The next thing is written communication, in which is a form of visual, but it is in a compact and encoded version of visual. It is important to know that it is compactor, more compact, and it is encoded version of visual communication. So in written communication, you can write a letter or send a text or send email or anything related to this written thing that you need to have perceptual encoding ability to make your thought into written and then pass it to someone who is able to use the same language and can read it to decode what you have written. So there is a thought, you encode, someone read and decode, yeah? And then they can think about the same meaning or message we have intended to convey. And the last one, the last type of communication is listening communication. As if when you are listening to someone, as if when you are trying to gain information from someone else, in fact, you are communicating with that person. Or in Farsi, we have some idiom that, am I talking to the wall? Am I talking to the wall? So in fact, let's not be a wall when we are another party of a communication, we need to be all ears, you need to try to be active listener, you need to show that we are paying attention to the details of the content of the speech. So it's the listening communication in which even if two persons at the same time listen to a music together, if the same feeling or vibes gets enunciated or radiated between them, in fact, listening communication. As if many of the music player, composer, or musician together, when they are running or partnershiping in some kind of music ensemble, they feel intimacy and connectedness to each other when playing music together. In fact, that kind of playing music together is activating the listening communication, and they can communicate with each other without any words being spoken between. Yeah, but they can send lots of signals, and also they can receive the common signal once it's being heard or listened. So it's very important to double emphasize on this part of the workshop that communication is not limited to speech or verbal communication. Yeah. Most of the time when children with ASD or any part of communicative disorder comes to us, there's a kind of big developmental gap or some delay in the developmental milestone of speech and language. The families might be very worried that, whoa, so that my child is showing some speech delay. For sure, that child's communication ability is demolished, and there's no way out to establish a kind of two-way relationship with that child, and that child is supposed to stay the rest of life in isolation or lonely. But the fact is that it's very important that in the meantime that we are doing our best on activating the verbal communication channels, we need to pay enough attention to the other types of communication so that the child feels not isolated, and so that the child feels he still has capacity that can be activated and help him out during the every day of their life. So we move forward and we talk about this very important diagram or chart. Okay, this diagram is mentioning based on WHO that no person can claim that during the long lifespan can never experience any sign of disease or injury. So if we fall and there is a kind of if we break our ankle or wrist, or if something happens to our eyes and we cannot see just stuff well, or if we are dealing with some disease or injuries that either temporarily or permanently made some impairment that we need some time to recover, or some parts of our abilities get limited due to that. It is called disease or injury that might happen. Even a part of problem could be a seizure or epilepsy or a stroke or cerebral palsy or cognitive insufficiency or anxiety or any disease like even simple sickness or cold, flu. Many of them might have temporary or transient or even lifelong permanent disability or impairment. But once it is called impairment, it means that it is a serious thing that is going to negatively impact on the person's ability. And once those abilities are badly limited in a way that the person cannot compensate the functionality through use of other functions, then it is called disability. For example, just imagine that I myself, as a person who is suffering from hearing impairment, if someone asks me, are you disabled in case of listening skills? I can say, yes, I am disabled in case of listening skills. So many of the jobs that are kind of related to accurate listening are almost locked to me. There are the doors in my life that are locked to me and I am disabled. But if someone asks me, do you have any compensatory technique so that those disability don't make you handicapped? For sure, I do. I do have lots of techniques or strategy, alternative techniques or strategy, or compensatory ones to somehow avoid and prevent from handicapping, okay? Because the big difference between handicapping and disability is that in handicapping, in fact, the person has given up. And the person has lost relationship, connectedness, and communication with the community that has negative impact on participation. So the big difference between handicap and disability is participation. So if you are disabled in some area, but you still are not isolated and you are taking a part in something, or you are playing an important role in others' life, or you are somehow connected to others to any sort of communication that I explained in previous slide, you are not handicapped, even if you are suffering from severe, serious, intensive impairment or disability. Yeah. So for me, as a person with hearing impairment that is partially disabled in case of listening skills, I cannot consider myself handicapped as I am playing a good role in my own clinic. I am running my private business. I am a partially reliable person for my colleagues or staff, for clients. So it's the thing that I feel myself still positive and influential, and I'm an effective person in the life of others and mine. So I am not going to be considered handicapped because of my severe impairment that has happened to me, uh, severe hearing impairment that has happened to me. So what is important here is that communication is that important that can differentiate between disability and handicapping. Yeah? So communication help us stay connected. And once we stay connected, we are getting far from handicapping. That's why we are going to pay attention about the more detailed aspects of communication in next slides. So let's review some models of communication. They are very traditional, and many of them are traditional methods of communication, models of communication. As you see, many of them are conceptualized versions of what Graham Bell, or the inventor of Telegram, not the current Telegram app, the past Telegram or telephone system that many years ago, some person whose name was Graham Bell, along with other colleagues, made our life easier. But that innovation is an origin of many of the models of communication as well. So it's not a kind of medical model, it's mostly about communication that you can read further on sociology books. Yes, yes, also public communication discipline or fields. Okay, so every communication has two parts, a sender and a receiver. So there is a sender and there is no receiver. Actually, we cannot mention that there is a message conveying, because message needs some destination. So sender encodes something, and through the use of channel, which is called message, written message, vocal message, song, sound, rhythm, dance, anything, picture, anything. That message will be decoded, will be encoded to that sound will be encoded into a message form, and then will be transferred or conveyed to the receiver, and it is the receiver's responsibility to decode it. Based on decoding, the receiver might get some idea about what you have planned to mention. If both parties of the communication almost understand similar concept or could convey similar concept, then we can say that that communication has been successful and free of any misinterpretation or failure. For example, just imagine that the sender is sending this message to the receiver. The sender is saying that I'm so proud of you because you have been the best student of this class. Okay? But for any reason, the receiver might interpret that message as, are you humiliating me? I know that in neither of the class records or marks I have gotten the top rank. So you are laughing at me or you are humiliating me? So there is a kind of hidden message that the sender planned to send to the receiver. The sender really wanted to say, you were a good student, you were the best student because you had progressed a lot, you were a successful student in learning and acquiring the skills, your behavior in the classroom was great, in a bracket, even though you couldn't get the top rank. But I consider you as the best student, and I am proud of you. But the receiver, whose self-esteem or self-confidence is not good, might interpret those messages as a humiliation or a joke. That, haha, I only consider myself the best student only if I get a top rank. Because my mom or dad has told me that you are not a good student because your marks are not showing any significant reasoning, or they are not reasonable that you are considered as a good student, because your marks are so, your scores are not a true reflection of the quality of your studentship. So that person might receive the signal in a very, very different way. These are called noises. So if there is a kind of immediate thought in the receiver's mind that has been impacted previously because of someone else's belief or value, or some prejudice or judgment or attitude or attribution or label, or even if the sender has utilized some method of communication in which several different concepts or meaning could be interpreted, could be derived out of that message. In fact, that communication is not clear and it is vague, it is unclear. And when a communication is not clear, then we say, okay, maybe he means so, but he means in contrast, other way. So our culture as Persian speaking people is a very, very covert culture. In covert culture, we say something, but it might have several meanings. We might say, thank you very much, you really helped me. And then everyone that hears it might feel that, okay, was it, were I really helpful, or you are laughing, or you are really humiliating? Why don't you dare to speak to me in a very straightforward way, that's saying that I'm not happy with your service because it was not helpful at all? Why do you say it in contrast, or it is my responsibility to take the real meaning of your message? So it's a very common phenomenon in some cultures that are covered, and in the culture that we utilize literature or ambiguity in transferring some signal, not to make any other people sad, but giving a feedback in the meantime as well, saying something but not saying that thing. So it's the model of communication that I just brought some example. I mentioned about the cultural diversity and many of the factors that are influencing this model of communication. The other model of communication, which is very, very well defined, is for Berlo. Now, Berlo's communication model is paying attention to four subsystems called source, in fact, the sender, the message, the channel, and the receiver. And still, again, the sender is encoding the thought into a message. There is a channel of seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, and tasting that the receiver decodes those messages that are perceived through these channels. And then the person who is receiving should be equipped well with communication skills, attitude, knowledge, social culture, and the sender also have the same characteristics and factors. So upon conveying a message, again, these things are effective and having some impact. The other model of communication, again, is that there is a communicator here and there is an effect on the other hand. In fact, the person who is receiving, there is a kind of effect. That's so communicator send the signal by a message, and that message is as if there is a kind of load that needs a train or kind of some vehicle. That vehicle or that channel is called medium, and that medium helps the message to be conveyed to receiver, and that signal which is perceived by the receiver might have some effect on the receiver. So the goal of any communication, the Lasswell model, is the effect. And if the effect of the communication is in well accordance with the purpose of the communicator, in fact, that communication has been successful. So if the communicator has planned to say that, "Hi, Fred, I'm very happy with you and I'm going to raise your salary in 2 months." And if the same message gets conveyed so that all the staff understand the message in a true way, in fact, the effect could be more motivation or feeling that their work has been acknowledged. But if the receiver get a vibe or message that you are giving us bribe because you are going to ask us more soon, or there is some trick, you are cheating something and we are not going to be tricked by you. So we feel insecure by raising our salary because no employer has raised no employee's salary for no reason. So there is a kind of trick or cheat. We should be much more cautious about your mannerism from now on. So if they interpret it in this way, in fact, it is kind of failure in the communicator's mission that the mission is not accomplished well because the message is conveyed in the wrong way. Yeah. Another model by Shannon and Weaver also is partially related to the similar thing. So as you see, there's always some sender, some receiver, some message, some transmission, some signal, some noise that exists and might make a change into the system or the message as a whole. So let's just skip to the other models, and so let's just skip to the next slides so that we can talk more. Now we can narrow down and focus, we zoom into the advice that can help communication. But just before jumping into the advice about communication, there is a slide that I wanted to talk partially about the side effects of inadequate communication skills. Just imagine that a person, or let's say a child, is suffering from some inadequate level of communication skills. Just imagine that a child at the age of 10, even though can speak, but cannot talk about feeling. Or just imagine a child at the age of 4 that can never speak, even though other ways of communication is still working. Or worse, just think about some person, some girl or boy at the age of 5 that in no way can understand what others are saying and can let others understand what they mean. Okay, so there are several different levels of capability or adequacy in the communication system, communication skill. Unfortunately, many of the children that come to clinic are struggling with intensive and severe issues, and it's just a warning that these slides or presentation or workshop are the basics of communication skills for more intensive or severe issues for sure, reaching out to some specialists in the scope of communicative disorder, like kind of speech language pathologies, is the most important thing you could ever do. But still, these general advice can help. So let's get back to the side effects. The side effect of inadequate communication skills could be behavioral and physical problem-solving strategies. But just before doing that, we need to do this one first. I want to invite you all to first make a list. So I make a break right now, and I stop sharing, and I'm requesting you all to open up your mic if you want and talk about the negative side effect of you can write down in the chat box or talk about the negative side effect of inadequate communication skill. What things happen if a child suffers from some degree of communication disorder? So you can open up your mic and talk, or you can write it in the chat box. For 3 or 4 minutes, we spend the time over that. So again, I say some example. We can say the person is dealing with some communication disorder and cannot talk. Can you imagine what the consequences of that inability of touch, speaking, can make kind of mental or cognitive or behavioral side effect on the daily life of that child? We can brainstorm, we can talk about the negative side effect of that. Anyways, the participation in the workshop also would help me to make sure that I'm communicating the message in the adequate and plausible pace. Also, since I know that since many of you might be in a location that you cannot activate your mic or you cannot type your write in the chat box, I truly understand if you can't do it. And in less than 2 minutes or so, we will get back to the slide and continue the workshop. So feel free and just relax. We can take it as a kind of 2 minutes break or an opportunity to participate.
And the
Okay, so I made the list, and later you can think it with yourself, to see if you can make the list longer or not. But some side effects of inadequate communication skills. One of them, and one of the most important, one of the most common one, is behavioral and physical problem-solving strategies. In fact, when a child cannot verbally communicate with others or cannot feel connected to the world, feels frustration because of every time that he wanted to express something to others, others didn't give enough power to the child and didn't get what he means. So he might utilize some some methods of behavioral or physical action to compensate and to gain or master the environment, gain power or master the environment through aggression or violence. Just imagine that if a child wants to play with the play video game for 10 more minutes. The child is busy with the video game, and it's a very, very critical moment that if the game is scored, then he can save that game, then he can turn off the video game. But you know that video game has lots of addictive part as well, and the child has spent 2 hours and a half over playing video games. So the mom, who is not aware about the sensitivity of that moment, after 4 or 5 times of reminding, prompting that the child has ignored, decides to unplug the video console, and the child might not able to talk even. The child feels why? Why I was winning the game? Why didn't you give me enough time to just finish it and then I myself would turn it off? But upon that level of high excitement, high negative excitement of frustration, even the child who is able to talk, maybe his speech gets locked and maybe he burst into tears, maybe he hit, maybe he threw the game console control, anything. And those are physical or behavioral strategies. And these strategies or these reactions might become problem-solving strategy when the mom or the parent panicked, get back and plug it back and then say sorry and then plug it back again. So the child reached to this conclusion that instead of talking and using my verbalization skill, if I show myself angry and hit my mom, maybe my mom listens to me better. Maybe my mom gives me the power that I'm not able to gain through my verbalization, but I can get it more easily from being behavioral or physical. So they become behavioral or physical problem-solving strategy for later on. The other thing is the feeling of isolation, that a child might be excluded from the team project or even at school setting, that child is not well recognized, or no one can play or communicate with that child easily. So in the break time or in a group activity, that child is left alone. And there is another side effect of inadequate communication skills. The other thing is about weakness in the flow and content of thought. Some content of thought, let's add one T here. Get TS here. So content of thought. So weakness in the flow and content of thought means that if a child doesn't have a receiver in front of him that cannot convey the message, gradually, the ability of brain to think, the content of brain to think about, and the way the child can make a flow in the way of thinking gets weaker and weaker. There is a kind of idiom called lose it or use it or lose it, or you will lose the thing if you don't lose it enough. So that kind of losing the power, the good intensity or power of the muscles by not having proper exercise or activities. Yeah. The other thing is about improper socialization opportunity, that no one invite them to birthday event or party, no one include them to any kind of game or activity which is a group based. So that child gradually doesn't find enough opportunity for socialization. Remember, socialization is different from communication, but inadequate communicational skill negatively impacts socialization opportunity. So, unfortunately, the children who are suffering from communication disability, these children are in need of receiving more, being given more opportunity of socialization, but these children will be given less opportunity in real life. And sometimes in clinical setting, we are some kind of making that in a kind of simulated version, making some kind of a small group program, as if they work like a kind of bridging program to prepare the skills and let the child have a kind of feeling of success during socialization. Anxiety upon facing microstressors and learned helplessness is another side effect. When a child feels alone, in fact, several strategies of problem solving, several times of sharing his feeling with others or asserting his feeling with others will be negatively impacted, and due to that, the child might feel helpless, or the child might feel lots of anxiety because he's feeling that no one else is here to understand or help them. The other thing is about negative impact on learning, because when a child's communication skills get impacted, the teachers, whoever it is, the instructor, teacher, therapist, parents, cannot make sure if the child has understood the message well or not, cannot make sure if the child is ready to get the next chunk of learning or not. So this impairment in communication negatively impact on the process of learning as well. The teacher continues talking about different concepts, but the child not getting the child doesn't reflecting in their eyes or by question whether he has understood it or not. And it is a very, very important thing. Most of the time, children with communication disabilities are being underestimated. We easily might feel that they don't understand anything. But most of the time, it is wrong. Just imagine that many of us are immigrants whose language skill is not as sharp or accurate as of a person who is whose whose mother tongue language is English. Just just imagine that with the degree of PhD, we come and immigrate to a new country in which the first language is English or French, and then once it is our turn to talk about our thought on a project, even though we are the most sophisticated person in that meeting, even though we are the most knowledgeable person in that meeting, since our language is not the first language, when we start to talk, we might be underestimated. We might be recognized as, oh, that person knows something, but still because of inadequate use of word or inaccurate use of word, we cannot give the opportunity, or we cannot consider that person as a kind of serious position. Okay, he knows something, but he needs to be the follower. Um, Maybe a tolerable team member. But no one at that meeting can imagine that that person who were conveying this level of experience with weak language okay, have been underestimated. The same thing applies to the children with communication and disability, that they also have feeling, they also have thought, they also might have analytics about environment or surrounding environment, but since they cannot talk or verbally use or show off their abilities, they will be underestimated. Lack of control over one's territory. In fact, when a person cannot use communication skills properly, in fact, that person is not well equipped with power or self-control or controlling over the environment. So, have you ever seen some people whose language is in a way that they can convince a snake? Or have you ever seen a person who can talk in a way that they can change the deal? They can negotiate in a way they can change or make up a better deal. So these people are utilizing their language or communication skill as a power. As a power, they will get the upper hand in communication and they can set up broader territory for themselves. Yes? So if a child can say, let's go to the park, please, and then that please in the verbalization can bring a laughter or a smile on the face of a very tired dad. The dad talks to himself, I wish I would be a dad to hear please from a child. I am blissful to have such child. So even though I'm tired, okay, let's stand up, let's go to the park. Why not? Family time, okay? But if the child says, and it was the duty of the father to interpret that why my child is crying. Is he hungry? Is he thirsty? It hasn't had adequate sleep. Maybe he needs to be tickled, or maybe he needs more food. And in no way the father might feel that the child might need to be taken to park, because at the time that he is hypothesizing, he himself is tired. So unconsciously, he is not thinking of some item like going to park could be the solution for that cry. On the other hand, why always adult people should be responsible in understanding the meaning of a message? It is very hard to decode that message that, okay, that crying is related to the need of going to be taken to park. So, in fact, once the child's communication skill is so weak that for hunger, thirst, need of going to park, change of diaper, playing, going to playground or anything else, the child only knows how to play, how to cry. In fact, that child doesn't have enough control over one's territory, because that child cannot convince others to listen to them. Yes, so they become helpless. They might experience anxiety over that. Yeah. So the rest of the thing that in the break time you could add to the list, but these negative side effects of inadequate communication skills were just a pinch, just kind of examples, and we can add more to that list. So there are 10 advice that I just want to briefly talk about each 1 minute so that we can finish our today's workshop on time. So number 1 advice is exposure. Make common feeling and common meaning and common memories. What it means is that when the whole member of a team together go to the pool, all of them at the same time feel the coldness of water, and they feel and they jump into the water feeling the same feeling. though they are making common memory to each other, and this thing boosts up communication. When all people together go through a horror tunnel, they might feel the same negative excitement or experience of horror or some spooky thing as if we are approaching to Halloween. There is a kind of ceremony that is lots of spooky things surrounding us. And this common experience make us closer and more bonded to each other. Going to cinema or theater in which the salon is fully dark push us or force us to look at the stage and watch the same thing, get the same vibe, and make same memories, make us closer to each other. Yes? Number two is that it is very important to attend to and to acknowledge the details. If you see a child's shirt is fun, if you see the child has a wristband or a specific way of haircut, or the girl or boy who has a beautiful earring, or anything that you might feel attractive, or if you pay attention to that detail, you might have acknowledged the child's effort to show up non-verbally, but visually. In fact, it is a successful method of initiating the rapport and communication with that child. I remember that one time I had a kind of wristband on my hand, wooden wristband on my hand, and in the beginning of some intervention or initiating a relationship with a 10-year-old child who is very grumpy, I just jumped into the middle of a conversation and I asked the child, can you guess where I have bought it from? It's a souvenir. I have bought it from a country. And the child that wanted to show off his knowledge about geography said, I think you have bought it from Jamaica. And I said, how did you know that? How could you guess so? And then the mom said, really? Did you buy it from Jamaica? I said, no, I bought it from nearby state. But in fact, that positive vibe of memory, yes, I bought it from Jamaica. But I made a good rapport with the child. But I started the relationship with the child and I gave a good feeling with a positive vibe. Yes, you are knowledgeable. Wow, big knowledge of geography. And it was a good start of relationship with the child who is very, very gloomy and was totally resistant against coming to the therapy room because he himself would feel that I'm not a patient or client. Why I'm taken to clinic? And I just want to be acknowledged as a knowledgeable and smart boy. Why am I taken to clinic? I am not a patient. And once I made that rapport with him initially firsthand, the child just opened up the gates of control or let me communicate with him further. Yeah. The other thing is about pay attention and utilize art-related talent of your child. Some child genetically might be very good at music, singing, poem, dancing, card craft, visual craft, yes, poetry, pottery thing, watercolor. Many of children showed their talent, but we ourselves do not pay enough attention to these mediums of relationship or communication, and we just switch back to speaking. So why don't we establish the relationship from the point that the child feels confident enough to show it off? Okay? So I think the child is showing that if you want to communicate with me, this door please, this door please, this door please, and the person, the therapist might use another door which is partially locked. Knock, 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 knock. I am behind this door. Open the door to me. I said, I am standing behind this door. Just come to this door and open it to me. I'm ready to open it toward you. But we are insisting on the right door. The other thing is that just pay attention to the communication or relationship as if it is a credit account in a financial institute. When you are going to get a mortgage from a bank, first you need to have had some deposit. You need to show you are a reliable person. You are a punctual person that can stay committed to the promises. When you spend and invest money, you become more reliable, then you can get a mortgage from that relationship as well. So if you are one of the kind of parents that keeps asking from child, do your homework, do your assignment, do your therapies at home. Okay, be a good boy, listen to me, pay attention to my request. Okay? And in return, you haven't been in good standing or punctuality about staying on your promise to take your child to grocery shopping or a park or the places that the child needed to be taken. In fact, there is a kind of imbalanced credit account that you are getting bigger mortgage when you have put or deposited less credit beforehand. The other thing is about facial mimic and expression. For most of the children, specifically for the ones who are weak at theory of mind or joint attention, they are not able to understand your feeling only until your face clearly send a calming, soothing, and happy message to them. Just look at Mona Lisa's picture. No one understands if she is laughing, smiling, humiliating, thinking, if she is happy or sad. And it is the miracle of Da Vinci. But it's very, very frustrating for a child to decode that face. It's very frustrating to decode a mask or decode a masked face, which we call it poker face. So when you are busy and thinking about lots of the troubles you are dealing with, a hectic life, and in the meantime you are working mathematics with your child at grade 3, and your child is trying her best to do the mathematics with you, but on the face of you, the child feels a poker face. Okay, do that. Or bored, but not a kind of mimic that is making him hopeful that, yes, my mom still hasn't given up me. My dad still is hopeful to future and is happy to spend time with me. So that laughter, or let's say that smile on face, can reassure the child that everything is good and safe. We are moving forward. Don't be worried about that part of the relationship. Everything is safe and sound. So the next advice is about understandable advice or communication. Once you learn how you can make your communication with your child more understandable, you are moving or shifting from this picture of butterfly to this picture. Which picture do you prefer to watch? Which picture do you prefer to relate to? For sure, the clearer one, yeah? So if you know that your child's attention span is not very good, why do you talk to him from distance? Why do you talk to him with longer term of words, longer sentences? Why do you talk to the child with a fast pace? Why do you use abstract word? Why do you use some ambiguity or double meaning in a sentence? Why do you use kind of idioms in the sentences or instruction? Why do you say the instructions verbally but not showing it visually to the child? Why are you impatiently waiting for the child to do your orders without simplifying your sentences? Okay, they are the thing that mostly the parents or caregivers or therapists ignore or ignore its importance during the communication. Talk in a chunked speech. Slower pace, less number of words in each sentence, more simplified grammar, more objective words that are accompanied by visual or pictures. Yeah, they are making your communication more understandable to the child as a receiver. Because if your message is encoded in a complex way, the child needs more complex structure to decode your message. And it is harder for him, and the child might feel failure or might be scared of failure or frustration and might give up communicating with you. Number 7 is that don't make the child regret of communicating with you as if there is a big backpack that you say, come, I want to hug you. I'm so proud of you. I very love you. Then I love you. You're not supposed to eat too many sweets. Then I love you. When I am friend with you, it's better to listen to me. I'm a good mom for you. So just stop playing video game. If you are a good boy, as I said, just finish up your assignment and homework on time. So many expectations that just coming right after you have sent a good vibe to the child that, okay, let's stay friends with each other. Okay, now that we are friends, tell me all secrets. I need to know about your boyfriend. I need to know about your girlfriend. I need to know the details of secret. Who hit you? Who has played you? Or anything like this, okay? So don't make it heavy when you are communicating with your child. The next thing that I partially mentioned in the previous slide was that is that stand behind the right door, okay? Standing behind the right door is a very important thing. If the child is trying to play with you and you are trying to ask him to listen to you, in fact, the child is trying to establish the communication pathway through playing with you, and you are insisting that no, the right door is that verbal speech should be the start of conversation or start of communication. So, for majority of time, I have witnessed that the door that we are trying to push and they are temporarily or even, God forbid, permanently are locked. But there are some other doors that if we pay attention to, we see that, okay, so my child was very great at visual. My child was very great at using Prolocute to go to express and talk about his feeling. My child was very great in writing skill, even though he is very hesitant talking. So standing behind the right door or standing at the right door help your child gain more self-confidence in establishing routine and communication with you. And gradually, once he trusts you, he might even unlock the other doors as well. Number 8 is that some persons, some children, even let's say every person has his or her own pace of trusting, or communicating. Some people genetically are conservative, like a turtle. Some children, vice versa, we are very, very extrovert and they are communicating with you with more ease. So give time. Do not overpressure on a child when communicating. So once you send a signal, just give time and wait till the child processes. If your child is not going to get back to you after receiving a signal or message, maybe that signal, that message, the medium that you have used, or the intensity of your word, or the clarity of your voice or message needs to be revised by you. Do not repeat the same thing. Do not repeat the same model of communication if your child is not responsive to you. And give more time to your child. Next thing is detect, acknowledge, and resolve the obstacles. Sometimes a child is not communicative because he's suffering from hearing problem, some kind of hearing impairment. Maybe a child is very, very anxious or dealing with immense obsession or suffering from attention problem. They are the obstacles that exist, and if you don't detect or acknowledge them, you might expect your child to get and interpret your words or messages, and by this expectation, you are making the package of your words and meaning in a very complicated way. The child gets frustrated and give up, and the communication will end with a failure. So for this part, some services in occupational therapy, psychotherapy, speech language pathology, education, academic, many professional disciplines can help to resolve the obstacles. You can seek help for some expert opinion on that. And the last one is that we should be very mindful about invisible parties in the relationship and communication. It is a very important slide, not only for when relating or communicating with a child, but also in every communication that we have with other people as well. Okay? What does it mean? When I'm saying about invisible parties, it means that just imagine that the child is resistant to come to clinic for the assessment session. And the mom promised the child that when they go there, I will talk to Mr. Parsa, not to talk to you at all. I'm not aware about this deal that has been between mom and the child. So I reach forward to the child and say, "Hi, how are you?" And the child shrugs shoulder and look at mom. Since I don't know about the hidden deal between the mom and child, in fact, there is an invisible party in my communication with the child. The invisible party is the mom who has made a deal with the child. The deal that I'm not aware of, but it is influencing my relationship with the child. So that invisible party should be detected, and we should think of that, and we should prevent it. Sometimes in a relationship, the child doesn't want to come to the room because the last time that he has been taken to a doctor's office, the doctor's office was too boring. It took about 2.5 hours in the waiting room. And at the end of the day, when the child was visited by the doctor used some injection. So syringe, pain, injection, boredom, crowded situation, waiting room, meaninglessness, no play, no fun. And you are expecting me to go to therapy room or clinic again with happy mood? So in fact, that memory of that therapy room that had a bad memory in the mind of the child is the invisible part of my relationship and communication with that child. I can guess. That's why I most of the time use t-shirt or shirts. That's why most of the time I prefer to use some visual elements of childish or friendlier decoration in the room to convince the child, okay, don't worry, it's a fun situation. So plenty of these things to just minimize the prejudice or judgment by the child who is scared based on the past memories. So they are the 10 advice to boost communication. And again, warning, many of the communication disabilities or disorder are intensive and serious. Don't think that just implementing these advice are enough to resolve the problem. You can seek for expert opinion like speech language pathologists. And the good news is that in Catch-A-Balloon Clinic also, we have a speech language pathologist nowadays. We can announce it now with confidence that we can move forward along with. Anyways, it's just a warning that I needed to add to the last slide, and now it's the Q&A time. If any of you have any question, feel free to ask, and I will be waiting till for 5 or 6 minutes to respond to the question. Thank you. And you can stop the recording. Thank you.